It's meat. A bad meat goes bad.
You go bad.
So what do those best before dates on food packaging really mean? Well, here are 10 facts you need to know about food expiration dates. Best before. What's the difference?
Can I eat the pickle?
Well, there's a lot of salt in it, but yeah, it's fine.
There are many different phrases used for different dates for the expiration of certain products. This can be quite confusing for many people purchasing food, as many of the phrases appear to mean exactly the same thing. In reality, this isn't quite true. Here are the subtle differences between each common expiry phrase. Firstly, the best before date is a recommendation based on the date that the item will retain its highest quality of its flavor. It does not necessarily mean that the item is unfit or unsafe for consumption if consumed after that date.
Bet you didn't know.
Best before is perhaps the most common of all expiration date phrases that appear on food packaging, so this information can be incredibly useful when filling up your grocery cart. When it comes to certain foods, it becomes more important to take note of the best before date. As an example, because eggs can contain salmonella, they should always be eaten before the best before date, which is 21 days after being packaged in the UK and 45 days after being packaged in America. This is essential, as eggs degrade quickly once past their prime. Use by date. What's the difference?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday.
The use-by date is described as the last date a product should be consumed and is typically used for items like meats, dairy products, and ready-made meals. This date is usually based on standards recommended by the Food Safety and Inspection arm of the Department of Agriculture. In contrast to the best before date, which is often more of an indication about when the food's quality is the highest and should be consumed, the use-by date is generally a more strict date that refers to when the last date the food is acceptable to be consumed by humans. This is most often used for foods that are susceptible to spoilage through bacteria, chemicals, pathogens, and other numerous factors that contribute to the food spoiling. This can also be seen in a more visual sense through smells, look, and texture, which are signs you may notice if your food has gone bad or expired.
Smells like opportunity.
Proper storage and protection of food that contains this date are key, as it tends to spoil much more quickly than most other foods. While these dates are not always 100% accurate, it's still a wise decision not to eat food after its use-by date has passed. So to avoid getting food poisoning or an illness, it's best to obey that deadline. Sell-by date. What's the difference?
That's borderline black. I wouldn't eat that if I were you. You're an idiot.
The sell-by date refers to the last date that retailers are actually allowed to sell the item in stores. This type of expiration date is mainly used by the retail stores themselves for their inventory management, so they know when to replace certain items.
Sell before anyone else!
Much like the best before date, this date is not as strict as it appears to be, and you should still be able to consume food that has passed its sell-by date. There are no federal regulations for these dates to be included for customers, so they are vital for retailers and the people selling the products. Items that go bad quickly, such as meats and certain fruits and vegetables, may be exceptions, as the use-by date will often be close to the sell-by date in these cases. Over time, some foods also lose nutritional value as well. However, most remain safe to consume and eat overall. Other phrases used to help retailers and consumers include the freeze-by date, prepared on date, and manufactured on date. These are all indicators to give the consumer an idea of how fresh the items are, and more importantly, how long that product will remain fresh. When should you toss your food?
Can I try out this yogurt?
Okay, so we looked at the different best before phrases and how they're applied, but when should you actually toss your food, regardless of what the recommended date is? The truth is that on most occasions, you do not need to dispose of all of your food as soon as the recommended best by date has passed. This, of course, has exceptions. If you can smell or notice spoilage clearly in the product, then in cases like this, the food should be tossed immediately.
Always remember that.
Baby formula is also one exception that is strictly enforced by the FDA. Most pantry items, on the contrary, last much longer than the best before dates stated on the package. Low acidity foods like canned tuna or vegetables can last around 2 to 5 years in your pantry. In comparison, other, more high acidity items, such as fruits or pickles, will last for just over a year. There are also ways to make your food last even longer. Make sure it's stored properly. Storing canned foods in dry dry, cool, clean areas is a great way to keep them fresh and will leave them good to eat for a very long time. Another way to keep items fresh is to freeze them, which people often do with meat, vegetables, and fruits, and ready-made frozen dinners. This is a wise decision, as bacteria cannot grow in cold temperatures, and therefore your food will be safe for a good while. New to our channel? Then become an official BabbleTopper by hitting that subscribe button.
Thank you. Next!
What about foodborne illnesses?
Come on, kid. You don't want to eat this as sushi. It'd give you worms.
Though many of the dates listed on food items sold are simply recommendations that you don't have to follow exactly, there are a few benefits of following these dates more strictly. When it comes to most food, the longer it's around, the greater chance it has of collecting unwanted bacteria. So sometimes you might not want to take that chance.
Think about it.
It varies depending on the type of food and different types of bacteria that develop, but for many people, it's better to be safe than sorry in this regard. For example, the disease known as listeria is one of the more deadly viruses that can be found in food. Past outbreaks have been linked to dairy, vegetable, and meat products. Viruses like this tend to grow more in refrigerators, so be careful with foods that are stored there as opposed to in a freezer or pantry. So for food that is usually refrigerated, it's a good idea to prevent the growth of bacteria, and it helps to consume the food before the best-by date in cases like this. It's important to research how long each food in your fridge will be able to last, so you have an idea of when it's alright to eat it and when it should be disposed of. Your health needs to be the priority, and taking chances with certain expired foods can result in illness due to bacteria. What is the quality assurance date?
Every week I'm supposed to take 4 hours and do a quality spot check at the paper mill.
Another important bit of information to know regarding expiration dates is the quality assurance date. Just another chapter in the complicated manual of best before dates.
Another one.
The quality assurance date is primarily used by the manufacturers that produce food items as well as the retailers that sell the products. This date is very important for both of those groups. Though the food may last considerably longer than the date listed on the box, this is a date that retailers use to stop selling the product. This ensures that products are sold at their best quality, resulting in the best taste and quality for customers. The texture and taste of the food are subject to change and lose their fresh quality over time, and this is the biggest reason for having this date. It's found on a variety of different products found in most grocery stores, including boxed pasta and macaroni, boxed and canned soups, peanut butter, and mayonnaise. As with the other dates that we've looked at, this is another necessity for all people involved in the food production chain. However, the quality assurance date mustn't be confused with dates such as the toss-by date, so as not to waste your food, especially given the current economic climate we find ourselves in. What are freshness guidelines?
Oh, it's so fresh. Nothing better than when they're fresh. Nothing better.
Every type of food has a limited time that it will be fresh once you take it home from the store. However, this certainty varies with different types of food, as not everything stays fresh for the same amount of time. So let's look at a few different foods and find out how long you can expect to keep them fresh. Firstly, milk lasts about a week in the average fridge and is best kept in the back of the fridge to keep it from spoiling. Next, eggs will last around 3 to 5 weeks in your fridge and are also best stored in the back of the fridge. Ground meat has a much shorter shelf life in the fridge, only lasting 1 or 2 days. So be sure to store it in the freezer if you're not planning to cook it right away.
Trust me, bro.
Cooked meat lasts a little bit longer, however, giving you 3 or 4 days before that freshness starts to fade. Lunch meat or deli meats are generally good for 2 weeks when packaged and 3 to 5 days after being unsealed. Dry foods, like boxed pasta, will last you a considerable amount of time in the pantry, around 1 or 2 years. However, pasta only lasts for around 4 days in your fridge once cooked and prepared for a meal. What about wasting food?
I'll eat this tonight. Because it's not right to waste food!
Food waste is a genuine problem that happens frequently in the food industry these days. Whether it's taking place at restaurants, at grocery stores, or in people's homes, vast quantities of perfectly edible food are thrown out every day for various reasons.
How sad is that?
It's quite a shame to toss all of this good food, especially at a time when many people are struggling economically and do not have enough food to eat. Many people dispose of food prematurely because the best before date has passed, despite the food frequently being still acceptable to eat for quite a while longer, as mentioned in previous entries. A tremendous amount of food is also wasted by overconsumption. This is when consumers purchase more than they need and end up throwing out a considerable portion of their meal, which happens a lot more frequently than you might expect. This is especially common with food like grains and fruits and vegetables, which people think go bad and expire much faster than they actually do. To prevent food waste, you can buy less, store leftovers quickly to avoid contamination, freeze foods to make them last longer, and use a pantry with cool and dry areas to keep foods fresh for as long as possible. How do expiration dates differ in different countries?
Expiration date? Never.
Expiration dates on packages are common in numerous countries around the world, and although they have a basic element in common, the intricacies of the dates and their meaning and applicability vary depending on where you go in the world. For example, in Europe, the European Food Safety Authority conducted a risk-based approach to determining what dates would be added to packaging for best before, sell by, and use by dates.
We don't have that in America.
And this is done for each type of food. The UK has a similar organization for food regulations that aims to provide accurate dates and reduce food waste. Next, in Canada, hard expiration dates are only required on certain foods, such as formulated food for liquid diets, food for low-energy diets, meal replacements, and supplements. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency stresses that food should not be consumed after the expiration date. However, the same does not necessarily apply to the best before date. In the United States, they do not require specific terminology except for baby formula. Like with Canada, many dates are used as guidelines, though the expiration date is not just a suggestion, and it's recommended not to eat the product once that date has passed. Should expiration dates be changed?
June of 1996.
Those dates are arbitrary.
Based on the facts that we've looked at so far, it's clear that despite how confusing they can be at times, expiration dates are a vital and valuable batch of information for consumers, sellers, and manufacturers at every point of the food production process. However, this allows for a multitude of strategies that can be employed when grocery shopping. Following the various packaging dates exactly aligns with the consumption culture, which leads to overbuying and a tremendous amount of food waste. According to a recent study, the average American throws out between $1,300 and $2,300 of good food every year.
What?
Several actions can be taken, including pushing for governments to introduce bills that reduce food waste, and educating yourself and shopping smarter is a great way to go about things. For instance, the UK has a campaign with the slogan, "Look, smell, taste, don't waste," designed to educate people to use their senses and common knowledge to decide when to throw out food. More education about our food, changing our buying and eating habits, and pushing for legislation to add clearer expiration dates and a better organization can hopefully lead to an industry with less waste and more people getting the necessary food they need.
Fingers crossed.
We've got more. Just tap or click on another great video. First time here? Then hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to join our notification squad.